Life with kids can be stressful. Life with 12 kids can be overwhelming. Seeing the humor in situations and being willing to laugh at yourself can relieve tension and in general bring your family closer together. Sit back and enjoy as the Gilbreth family tell us some of their family stories in the book Cheaper by the Dozen by Frank B. Gilbreth Jr. and Ernestine Gilbreth Carey. When Dad bought the house in Montclair, he described it to us as a tumbled-down shanty in a run-down neighborhood. It takes a lot of money to keep this family going, and I'm sorry, I just couldn't afford anything better. We'll have to fix it up the best we can and make it do. As we drove from Providence to Montclair, Dad would point to every termite trap we passed. It looks like that one over there, except a few more broken windows and the yard is maybe a little smaller. As we entered Montclair, Dad drove through the worst section of town and finally pulled up in front of an abandoned structure and not even Dracula would feel at home in. Well, here it is, kids. Home. All out. You're joking, aren't you, dear? What's the matter with it? Don't you like it? If it's what you want, dear, I'm satisfied. I guess. It's a slum. That's what's the matter with it. No nasty opinion, young lady. I was talking to your mother here, and I would thank you to keep out of the conversation. You're welcome, said Ernestine, who knew she was treading on thin ice, but was too upset to care. You're welcome, I'm sure, but I wouldn't live in that thing with a 10-foot pole. Hush, dear. Daddy knows best. By jingo, kids. Wait a second. Wrong address. What do you know? Pile in. I did think this place looked a little more rundown than last time I saw it. He drove us to 68 Eagle Rockway, which was an old but beautiful Taj Mahal of a house. 14 rooms, 2-story barn out back, greenhouse, chicken yard, grape arbors, rose bushes, and a couple dozen fruit trees. At first, we thought Dad was teasing us again, and that this was the other end of his scale. A house much nicer than the one he had bought. This is really it, kids. I guess the reason I took you to the other place first, and well, the reason I didn't try to explain this place to you is because, well, I didn't want you to be too disappointed. Forgive me. We said we did. Dad had bought the automobile a year before we moved. It was our first car, and cars were still a novelty. Although Dad made his living by redesigning complicated machinery, he never really understood the intricacies of the automobile. He'd seen it in the factory and fallen in love with it. But the affection was entirely one-sided and unrequited. He named it the foolish carriage because he said it was foolish for any man with as many children as he to think he could afford a horseless carriage. The contraption kicked him when he cranked, spat oil him when he looked into its bowels, squealed when he mashed on the brakes, and rumbled ominously when he shifted gears. Sometimes Dad would spit, squeal, and rumble back, but he never seemed to win a single decision. Frankly, Dad didn't drive our car well at all, but he did drive it fast. He terrified all of us, but particularly Mother. She sat next to him on the front seat with 2 of the babies on her lap and alternated between clutching Dad's arm and closing her eyes in supplication. Whenever we rounded a corner, she would try to make a shield out of her body to protect the babies from what she felt sure would be mutilation or death. Not so fast, Frank. Not so fast. But Dad never seemed to hear. Bill used to crawl up in the seat right behind Dad, and whenever he was rounding a corner, he'd reach forward and clutch Dad's arm. Bill was a perfect mimic. He'd whisper, "Not so fast, Frank, not so fast." "For the love of Mike, Lily, I was only was only going 20. He always subtracted 10 miles an hour from the speed limit whenever he was discussing the matter with Mother. I didn't say anything, dear. You'll be the death of me yet, boy. Dad was especially fond of the electric horn, an ear-splitting gadget which bellowed "Kadoka" in an awe-inspiring metallic baritone. A few days after he bought the car, he brought each of us children up to it individually, raised the hood, and told us to look inside and see if we could find the birdie in the engine. While our backs were turned, he tiptoed to the driver's seat and pressed down on the horn. Kadoka! Kadoka! The horn blaring right in your ear was frightening, and you jumped back in hurt amazement. Did you see the birdie? I bet you jumped 6 and 9/10 inches. One day, after a particularly trying picnic, the car bulked, coughed, spat, and stumped. Dad was tired and sweaty. We children had gotten on his nerves. Out of the car! Dad seldom swore. An occasional, perhaps, but he believed in setting a good example. Usually he stuck to the phrases such as, "By Jingo" and "Holy Moses." He said them both now, but there was something frightening in the way he rolled them out. His head and shoulders disappeared into the inside of the hood. You could see his shirt wet through, covered in sweat. Nobody noticed Bill. He had climbed into the front seat. Kadoka! Kadoka! Dad jumped so high he actually tumbled into the engine, leaving his feet dangling in midair. His head butting against the top of the hood, and his right wrist came up against the red-hot exhaust pipe. You could hear the flesh sizzle. Finally, he managed to extract himself. He was livid. He said as if he'd been saving this oath since his wedding day for just such an occasion. Who did that? Mercy Maud, said Mother, which was the closest she ever came to swearing too. Bill, who was 6 and always in trouble anyways, was the only one with nerve enough to laugh. But it was a nervous laugh at that. Did you see the body, Daddy? That was a good joke on you, Daddy. There's a time and there's a place for birdies. And there's a time and there's a place for spankings. I bet you jumped 6 and 9/10 inches, Daddy. Yes, Billy. By Jingo, that was a good joke on me. I suspect I did jump 6 and 9/10 inches. Dad loved a joke on himself, all right, but he enjoyed it a few months after and not when it was happening. The story about Bill and the birdie became one of Dad's favorites, and no one ever laughed harder at the end of the story than Dad. Unless it was Bill. By Jingo.